felt very inspired to film this clip right now, so I'm not going to question it because rarely do I feel inspired to film anything. And even if I do, my roommates are home and they're not home right now. So I'm just going to capitalize it and get this clip filmed. As you probably gathered from the intro, I am going to be reading the highest and lowest rated book on my TBR in this vlog to see if we can trust Goodreads, if Goodreads ratings are any indication of how much I'm gonna like a book. So let's hop into it. I do have a couple ground rules that I want to establish. So I'm going to be doing my live reaction to my actual Goodreads to read list. I have not picked these books in advance. I really have no idea what's going to be on there. So I do know that I have every single book that I own on my Goodreads TBR. I'm pretty like 99% sure that I have all of those books on my Goodreads TBR, but I don't have them all like sorted into one shelf. So we are just going to be looking at my in general to read list, but I will not be acquiring any books for this vlog. I am completely solely only going to read books that I currently have access to, aka they are on my shelves or I currently have them borrowed from a friend. Another rule, like I'm obviously not going to read a book if it's in the middle of a series. Series are not excluded, but I will only be reading either the first book in a series, or if I'm like up to that book in the series, I can read it. I think those are my main two ground rules. Like I'm going to own it and I'm not going to read a random book that's in the middle of the series because I'm not crazy. So that was a long intro for a relatively uncomplicated topic. So let's just go ahead and look at my to read shelf. All right, this is my want to read shelf, and let's go ahead and sort it by average rating. Do I have any predictions before this starts? I feel like Chain of Thorns is definitely going to appear by Cassandra Clare, but obviously that's the middle of the series. I don't know if Chain of Gold will appear. What is high rated on my shelves? I'm kind of afraid it might be The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, which is really thick. I'm also kind of worried that it's going to be like a nonfiction book. I don't have very many of them, but I'm like not really in the mood to read that, but I don't know. Let's see. This might pop up with the lowest rated first too. I'm really not sure which direction it's going to go in. It's sorted by lowest rating first. I haven't looked at it yet. I put my hand over the screen. I just saw that the lowest rating is a 3.0. I'm not sure what that's going to be. Do know that I kind of cheated and I did just recently add the Amityville Horror to my TBR and I saw that that had a 3.09 rating when I added it. So honestly, that might be the lowest rated book that I own. Or was that YN? I don't remember. Okay, let's see. Okay, the first lowest rated book is Driven by Passion, which I think is like a an F1 male romance. Obviously, not obviously, but I do not own that book. That's only probably available in ebook. Oh, the next is rated 3.09. Oh, it was not Amityville Horror, it was YN. Okay, YN. That is what I'll be reading for the lowest rated book. Let me grab it. So I honestly kind of just picked this book up on a whim at Barnes & Noble, which is the reason why I own it and it has such a low review, I think. So this one will be interesting. Basically, it follows this woman who, a fanfic writer, and she becomes obsessed with this boy band, this K-pop boy band member, and starts writing self-insert YN fanfic about him. She is the self-insert, and I believe that like her writing gets mixed up with reality, and she like actually physically like starts to go and like try and find Moon, try and like stalk him or build a relationship with him or something. I do know that this is like literary fiction, and I think it will be really interesting to read like a literary fiction that explores this idea of fandom and fanfiction and obsession with these people that you don't actually know. So I do think that this one has the potential to be good. I'm not sure why it has such low ratings. That might be something I explore after I read it. We can look at the ratings together and see what's up. I do think though that my friend Noelle read this book and liked it. I'm not like totally thinking that I'm gonna hate this book. Like I think it will have some redeeming merit for me. So I'm excited to read this one. Let's find out what the highest rated book is that I will be reading. Let's flip. I'm gonna put my hand up again so I don't spoil myself. Oh, a lot of these have a 5-star rating, so I assume they're not out yet. So yeah, the first book, Ignited by Becca Steele, not released yet. Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens, not released yet. The Bone Collector, Only James, not released yet. Not released, not released, not released. I don't think any of these are released, honestly. Oh, interesting. The Long Game by Rachel Reed. I could read that. I do have that in ebook. Huh, fascinating. I'm just curious to see like what the highest rated physical book I own is. I'm just gonna go down and see what that would be. Oh, okay, so that would be This Is My America by Kim Johnson. Interesting. Oh, What do I want to read? All right, so The Long Game by Rachel Reed. It is. I know I said that I was just gonna read physical books, but I do own this one. Like, I have it as an ebook, and it's on my end of the year TBR. I've been meaning to read it forever. Like, it's honestly a crime I haven't read it yet. So this is gonna be what we read. The Long Game is the sequel to Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed, in which Shane and Ilya, who are two NHL hockey players who have this notorious rivalry, actually hook up behind the scenes, and then obviously it builds and they start to actually like form a genuine relationship and connection and fall in love. At the end of Heated Rivalry, they have not gone public with their relationship, so I think The Long Game, dealing with a lot of the idea of coming out in the NHL and how they're going to continue to make the relationship work, if it's going to be in secret, if it's going to be public, and those kinds of things. So that's the book we're gonna read. I was not expecting that, but I'm happy that that is the one. I'm happy that's the one. 4.61 is a really high rating, so this is probably gonna be a 5-star for me. I think it will be difficult for YN to compete, but who knows? Maybe this will be a 5-star in its own right. We don't know until we read them. So let's read them. So, this book is interesting. I think I described it pretty well in the intro. It's basically about our narrator who becomes obsessed with a boy in a K-pop group. In the first chapter, she goes to a K-pop concert and is like instantly drawn to this one boy in the group named Moon, and she becomes obsessed with him. She's definitely unhinged. Like, I thought we were gonna kind of have like a slow descent spiral into madness. No, she's already wild. I'm only 50 pages into this book. Like, she is just like basically blowing up her life because she becomes so obsessed and is convinced that she has this like intimate one-on-one relationship with this boy and this band. And the way this book is written is kind of bizarre. It is very like literary fiction, like huge words, no dialogue, just kind of stream of consciousness of our narrator. It reminds me of like books that I would read in school. So I mean, I kind of do like that every once in a while, but I'm not sure that this is the best medium and story for that. She's just kind of started to write the self-insert fanfic, and I don't know, I'm interested to see where it's going to go. It's definitely like interesting to read, but I don't know if I would say I'm enjoying it. I think once I finish it, I'll read some of the reviews and we'll try and kind of figure out not only what I think of the book, but why it has such a low rating, because I'm very interested like why other people dislike it so heavily, that it has such a low average rating. I feel like from the first 50 pages I can kind of see that this just is not everyone's cup of tea. That's very obvious to me from the jump. I'm interested to know like how I will feel about it. Right now I feel very conflicted. Like, I think it's interesting and I'm like kind of gripped by it, but not because I like the character or love the writing, but it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting. Like, I don't have a better word to describe it. So yeah, those are my initial impressions of this book. I'm gonna get farther into it. I might give you another update like maybe when I have 50 pages left, so I'm like really into the meat of it and just have the last little bit of the story to go. I think that's when I will give my next update, and then I will give a final update and we will look at reviews and things. So yeah, this is fascinating. I'm gonna keep reading and I will let you know more of my thoughts as we go along. Alright, I've read the next chunk of YN. I think I only have 50 pages until the end. I'm on page 159 and it's 206, I think. So a little less than 50 pages left. And this book is interesting. I just feel like the writing is very pretentious. Like, I feel like it's trying to convince me that it's intelligent and it has things to say and that it's using metaphors and similes. Like, I can see the merit and there's parts of it that I like and I enjoy this look at fandom. It's not enjoyable for me to read. And that's why I read for enjoyment and escapism. I mean, every once in a while I want to read to feel smart, but do I really? Not really, honestly. No, I don't. Like, and I feel like that's what this book is. This is a book for people who want to read to feel smart. I don't know. Like, I think it's
good, and I think it is interesting, but am I having a good time? Not really, no. It's not offensive to me, it's just, well, it's a little bit offensive to me, actually. Some of the things are really weird in this book, to be honest with you, and I just, like, don't know what I'm supposed to feel about it. It's kind of like that thing where, like, art's supposed to make you uncomfortable. That's this book, I guess. It's definitely making me uncomfortable in some aspects, and it's just odd. It is like almost, I want to say, similar to like books like Mrs. Dalloway, like things I read in English class in college. They're like stream of consciousness. Like it kind of reminds me of like Miss Dalloway, Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, social commentary book with a literary intelligent twist. Like that's what this book is giving to me, which I think is what it's trying to give. So good on it for that, I guess. This book is not connecting to me emotionally in any way, which is what I like for a book to do when I'm reading it. That's my summary of my current thoughts. I don't know what's gonna happen in the last 50 pages. It could just like take a dive off of a cliff and I could rate it 1 star. Right now, I'd probably give it 2.5 just because I don't know what I feel about it. You know, like a 2.5 is just like a safe rating, which is like, I don't hate it, but I didn't love it. And I don't have any strong feelings on it, which is kind of where I'm at right now, I think. So yeah, that's the update. Hello. I'm sorry if you can hear children screaming outside. I do live across the street from middle school and they just got out. I'm hoping like the camera won't pick it up, but we'll see, I guess. So I did want to update you because I have finished YN by Esther Yi. I'm sure you got this vibe from the other update clips, but this was interesting and not really my cup of tea. I will say that I do think the Goodreads ratings were correct in this one and that this was not a win for me. I did end up giving it 1 star, which I think is a little harsh. Like maybe it's more like a 2 star because I don't really necessarily have a ton of strong feelings. Honestly, I only rated it 1 star so that maybe my Goodreads review would get more traction. But yeah, overall, I did not enjoy this one. I thought it was very strange. It felt like an acid trip. I don't really think that it successfully like conveyed the point that it was trying to get across. I honestly don't really even know what the point it was trying to get across was. You know, I don't know. It was just so weird. And the main character was so like aggressively unlikable, saw herself in such a strange way. I don't even know. Like, this is just like weird sad girl fiction. And I'm not a reader of weird sad girl fiction, so I didn't like it. Like, I thought it would be more interesting because of the fandom elements. I do think that that's something that is super interesting to me as it's a world that I was a part of, but I did not feel like this was relatable to me in any way. And I don't really feel like it had an accurate handle on fandom culture and the way that YN fanfiction works, because the fan fiction that this girl writes in this story, like some of it is part of the narrative and you're kind of like, this is the story that she has really created in her head and thinks is canon. The story itself is so fucking weird that you're like, what is happening? Who would be reading this? Like, it was so weird. It was so weird. It just was not what I thought it was gonna be, and I really honestly didn't like it, so I gave it 1 star. So I did think it would be interesting to kind of like look at the actual Goodreads reviews and see if any of them resonate with me. So let me pull that screen up and we can kind of like react to that. Okay, so here is the Goodreads page for the reviews, and as you can kind of see, the review breakdown is actually super interesting. I kind of thought that maybe this like 3.0, 3.07 rating to be exact was because like it was very polarizing. Like people were either like really loving it or really hating it, but it's actually the opposite. It has a majority of 3-star reviews, which I will say is pretty uncommon for Goodreads. Like I feel like usually the highest category is 5 or 4-star reads. A lot of casual readers just give books like 4 or 5 stars. Typically, unless they hate the book. That's just my theory. Don't know if it's a fact. Anyway, this book is different than that because it has a majority of 3-star ratings. Both 5-star and 1-star are the outliers. It is like almost a perfect like parabola graph, as you can see, which is very interesting to me and pretty unique, I believe. I guess we'll see when we look at ratings for the long game. So this book, to be fair, has less than 3,000 ratings, and a third of those are 3-star rating. One of the top reviews here from Lily says, the premise sounded so unhinged and fun, but this book ended up taking itself way too seriously. I found the attempts at intellectualizing fan culture / obsession to be pretty insipid, and the dialogue was honestly so terribly written. Honestly, I really like wholeheartedly agree with this review. I was expecting like an unhinged, fun kind of book, but I think it did take itself too seriously and try to be like too literary about this concept, which I think kind of like is what ultimately is alienating readers, in my opinion. Every review is like, she ate, and I'm like, his cuticles? That's how this book made me feel. That's an interesting review. That's funny. I got this from the library for free, but I still want my money back. Yeah, pretty much. This review just has slapped. Not much to go on there. That's what half of my reviews look like though, so I'm not gonna really comment on that. This is a 3-star review. Oh my. These novels, slippery, deliberately enigmatic. E has stated she's not so much interested in fandom and celebrity culture as she is in the state of being in love in its most extreme sense. That is interesting because I feel like that definitely encapsulates what I think I was trying to say in my review of this book, is that like I thought it would be interested in fandom and celebrity culture, but it really was not. And that makes sense if that is the author's stance on the subject. The style is curiously formal and the phrasing and dialogue can be disconcerting, almost jarring at times, but there are also some striking passages and moments of wonderfully dry humor. For me, this was perhaps more interesting than it was entirely convincing, but it could also be fascinating, really furiously inventive, often totally subverting my expectations. I do agree with that. Like, I did think that the style was too formal for the subject matter. I didn't really find anything humorous personally, and I did think it was more interesting than convincing, but yeah, I don't know. This is a positive review. Beguiling original novella that explores loneliness, desire, and obsession and how they are driven by contemporary pop culture. Surreal and lush, YN is a brilliant reflection on what it means to devote oneself to art, to love, to an idea, and what happens when it all comes crashing down. It's a testament to the ways in which we build monuments out of our own expectations and desires, how much we invent others to fit our own perceptions and ideas of love, and how we most often do not want what is unattainable most of all. A unique, dreamy interpretation of what it means to have an identity that is set apart from so many other lonely souls. This was a compelling read. I feel like that review didn't say anything. That was like word salad to me. Well, as expected, this was definitely a bit bizarre. I think I like the idea of this book and the topics tried to grapple with more than the execution of it. Despite a few high points overall, it kind of felt unrealized to me. I would agree with that. I do think that that's pretty much what my review was trying to say, like the concept and the ideas, but the execution was weird. This person loves weird fiction. It's also it's often gross, cringy, uncomfortable. I don't think I mentioned this, but there were quite a few scenes in this book that were just nasty, like for no reason. It was almost like just shocking to read, and I think the purpose was just to shock the reader and make them uncomfortable, which I think like being obsessed to someone to that degree is shocking and uncomfortable anyway. You don't have to add like body horror and grossness into it to emphasize that point. I think you should trust your reader to get it, you know, like I thought that was unnecessary. Oh my gosh, yes. The text reads like a fever dream at times, a journal entry at others, and often it drifts into a wolf-like stream of consciousness. I think that was what I was trying to say. Did I say this explicitly before? Because I was definitely thinking this while I was reading it, that I felt like it read very similar to like Orlando by Virginia Woolf, and like that one, I can't remember what it's called, but the one book where it's just like an internal dialogue set along one day where this lady's like running errands for her party. Like that book. That's how the writing style was. It was very like Virginia Woolf-esque, which I don't necessarily love. So that's funny that somebody else said that. I'm glad that it wasn't just something that I came upon and like thought randomly. Oh, this person hated this book. Hated the smug, opaque narrative. Wanted a story about fantasized obsession, longing and yearning. Can always watch Vertigo. Blah, blah, blah. Awful. Drones on and on. Okay, they're just comparing it to something that I don't know what it is. Oh, a 5-star review. Oh my gosh. Oh, you simply have to pick it up. Best written portrayal of parasocial relationships and obsession with flawless versions of celebrities. One can easily dream about when they don't know that celebrity enough to understand their humanity. Genuinely one of the best novels I read this year. Can't agree, sorry. That's word salad again. I don't really understand what that is entailing. I hate asking this of books, but what was the purpose? What happened? Where did it mean to go? Suddenly my parasocial relationship is not that concerning. Honestly, same. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty normal if this is what extreme is. This girl in this book. Okay, so that's some little insight into the reviews and where the average Goodreads rating comes from. I thought that was just kind of interesting to see how my review compared to others. My review is literally just what the fuck. So I didn't write a very good like review that will help people either, to be fair. So in this situation, I do think that I should have trusted the Goodreads reviews and avoided this book. I did like pick this book up at Barnes though, like not knowing any of the reviews about it, just seeing the title and being interested in the idea of a book about a woman who writes YN fanfiction and starts to believe it's real. And I do still think that that would be an interesting premise, and I just really don't think that that's what this book was about. Like, I think a like modern thriller writer would have done better with it. Like, this lit fic, sad girl, weird fiction wasn't my vibe. Like, I just don't think that that was the best media like vehicle for the topic at hand. So yeah, that was the lowest rated book. Now let's move on to The Long Game, the highest rated book. Hello, I have read about 15% of The Long Game and wanted to give you my initial thoughts and feelings on this book. So as I mentioned in the intro to this video, The Long Game is the second book. It's the sequel to Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. I believe that's why it has such a high rating, because people that loved Heated Rivalry are gonna love a sequel following these characters that they have come to love, especially because this book, I don't think it's gonna be super heavy on like conflict between the characters. I think it's kind of an us versus the world kind of conflict. So it's really just like gratuitous. It's not gratuitous fluff. It's like an actual book with conflicts and resolutions, and you know what I mean. But it is kind of fan service. So I think that's why it has such a high rating. You know, I'm a simple gal. I love fan service. Thank you for writing this, Rachel Reed. I appreciate you. Hats off to you. I have no complaints. So I think I've read like 75 pages of this. It's almost a 500-page book, which is crazy, but I'm enjoying it so far. Basically, our main characters are like 10 years into their relationship, and they're still like not fully out to the hockey world, and they're trying to navigate. I think Ilya wants to come out a little bit more than Shane does. Shane's more anxious, more worried about how his career is going to be affected because he's not ready to give up hockey, but he loves Ilya so much and does like want to come out, but he just wishes things were different. I think that's the main conflict throughout the book, is trying to figure out how and when they're going to come out to the rest of the world. That's basically what's happening in the setup of this book. I love it. The writing is great. Ilya is hilarious. I've highlighted so many lines of him talking just because he's so funny. And it's definitely interesting reading this book directly after YN, because YN is just such a like literary fiction, pretentious kind of book, and this book is just the opposite. This book is just cozy and fun, just there for a good time, you know, like it's not trying too hard, it's not trying to be something it's not trying to convince you that it's intelligent, like it just is a cute fucking romance between two idiots. Like, I don't know, it definitely is more my speed and more enjoyable to me than YN is. Yeah, those are my initial thoughts and feelings, and I can't imagine like not enjoying this book. I can't imagine it's going to get anything other than 5 stars. Hopefully that's not a spoiler to you. Hopefully you probably knew that from the beginning. I am now 55% of the way through The Long Game by Rachel Reed, and I'm enjoying it. So the first 50% is definitely pretty slow, and I think I mentioned this in my first clip, but it feels pretty like fan servicey. Like literally I feel like it's just scenes of the characters interacting, having sex, kind of like starting to introduce conflicts, but they end up being fairly minimal. But I feel like a major conflict just started in this last chapter that I read, so I definitely want to continue this book, so I wanted to film this update today so that I can finish the book. Yeah, it's kind of stressing me out because like part of me is like, finally something happened, but I just wish like the conflict was kind of like outside of the couple, you know, since the couple has been so like well established throughout the first book, throughout the first 50% of this book. It's just frustrating that the conflict has to be what it is, because it's really like a miscommunication, not being on the same page kind of conflict, which I was kind of hoping that it wouldn't be. I do think that the issues are truly like isolated to the individual. It seems like something that can be worked through, like no one has done anything unforgivable at all. The conflict is just kind of like starting to bubble up. So I am like kind of excited that a conflict has finally come in, because literally the first 200 pages were just like nothing. Like literally nothing was happening. So even though that's not my preferred conflict, I'm glad a conflict is finally happening, because I didn't realize like how much I enjoy reading about the conflict, and that's what keeps you reading the book. Kind of until this book, because the first 50% I was just like, okay, let's go, let's keep. It just was boring. Like nothing was happening. There was no reason for me to keep reading. Like I like seeing the characters together as much as anyone else, but I don't need a book of fluff, you know? I like a good mix of things. I need like fluff, smut, and conflict, please. Hopefully the last 50% is going to be a little bit better. Honestly, the first 50% I would rate like 2.5, 3 stars. Like it really wasn't that great. I don't need much of a plot, but I need something. So hopefully that plot's like finally coming into play. And so the last 50% will be a lot better because I need it to be. So that is where I am right now. I'm going to try and finish it up today. So I maybe will be back looking the same later today. We'll see. I'll keep you updated. I'm literally so close to the end of the book and my fucking iPad just died. It just died. Oh my god, I can't believe it died on me. I mean, I can. It was like at 20% when I freaking started reading. And I had like 2 hours left in my book, so I knew it was gonna die, but I was so close to the end. It couldn't have just lasted for 15 more minutes. Oh my god. Okay, so I know I was being a little bit negative in the previous clip, but I like can't stop smiling. Like I just have this goofy grin on my face like reading the last half of this book. The conflict I mentioned was honestly like pretty chill. Like it was, I mean, it was a big conflict, but it wasn't super angsty or drawn out, which I honestly appreciated. This book is like very fluffy. There is like a minimal amount of angst. I am like kind of feeling like it's a 4-star read. I really don't know how much I have left. I don't think I have like honestly more than like 20 minutes left to read, just because I have had some complaints with it, but honestly it's like so sweet and lovely, and it's nice seeing these two characters just be happy together, and I do love it and I do love them, and this really is like a special book, special characters to me, so it is a very fun read, and like I understand why it is so highly rated. It's definitely super cute, and I don't know, maybe by the time I finish it I will commit to like a 5-star rating because it is really good. So I guess I'm gonna go charge my iPad. I don't think I actually have the book downloaded on any other device, so I'm gonna have to wait for it to come back to life tonight. Yeah, I will let you know my final official thoughts when I finish. Okay, I did finish The Long Game by Rachel Reed, and I did end up really liking it. I was grinning like a loon at the end of the book. Like, it was just so cute, and it ended really well, and everything like worked out, and it was just so happy and sweet and lovely, which I didn't expect it to not end well, but I was kind of nervous about how the conflict was going to play out. In the end, it really wasn't that big of a conflict. I think I said that in the last clip, but this isn't gonna be a 5-star for me, which I'm kind of shocked about. I do think I want to read the ratings and reviews like I did for YN to see kind of why this book is so highly rated. I think I know why it is so highly rated, because Shane and Ilya are just two very loved characters, and this sequel is just only a book that people who loved the first book are gonna read and who love this couple already. That eliminates a whole pool of negative readers when it's a second book in a series that people already love. For me though, I honestly think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I just feel like I can't justify a 5-star rating when I did kind of have trouble getting into it, because there is really no plot. Like, nothing is happening in this book at all, and I just think that I needed a little bit more something, a little bit more conflict, a little bit more angst to like propel me through this 500-page book. Like, I don't know if I mentioned, but this book is 500 pages, which is
insane for a romance book, especially a romance book that has no plot and is like pretty exclusively fan service and just like an extended epilogue of what happens to this couple after the events of the first like initial book about them. I almost felt like the resolution to this conflict was like a little cheap and not exactly like it was what I assumed was going to happen and how I assumed it was going to happen. I just kind of wish it had been a little bit different because the conflict was kind of like solved for the characters instead of them like doing it on their terms and initiating it, which I just kind of cheapens it, you know, like I don't know. Overall, loved this book, but I'm not sure anyone else will have that complaint. So let's like hop into the reviews and just see what people are saying. All right, as we can see, this review breakdown is so different than YN. To be expected, this book also has a lot more reviews than YN, which is telling in and of itself. To have less than 3,000 ratings, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like I feel like the more ratings you get, the more chance you have for negative reviews, but then if you have like a low amount of ratings and your ratings tend lower, it's going to drag your average rating down even lower. But both of them are under 10,000, so I feel like they're sort of in a similar category review-wise anyway. And as you can see, like by far the greatest category of ratings for this book are 5-star ratings. Like almost 70% of people that read this book rate it a 5-star, which is insane and is probably makes it like one of the highest rated books I've ever read. And there are only 25 total people out of nearly 9,000 who read this book who gave it 1 star, who like actively disliked it, which is fascinating. And I don't even know what they could possibly like hate so much about this book, but I guess we'll find out because let's keep going. This person gave it a 5-star. They just listed out some quotes, not really a review. I liked this one a lot. Ilya's one of my faves and he shines in this book. I definitely agree with that. Ilya is just such a good character. He is so funny and I love how much he loves Shane. Like it's just so cute to read about. Like I definitely agree. Shane is so vanilla, but I still like him. I think Shane definitely is a less complicated character than Ilya, but I do think that he is interesting in his own right. He is more relatable to me, so I do have a soft spot for Shane. This book is definitely written first and foremost for the fans. Makes sense because the fans are the ones who wanted it. That said, I think I might give something to those who weren't as obsessed with Shane and Ilya as the rest of us. It also has excellent mental health representation. I do second that. I did think that it was awesome. A big part of Ilya's story is that he is struggling with his mental health and depression, and he does reach out to a therapist, and a lot of the conversations with his therapist are seen in book, and at the very end he does go on medication. I think it was very like accurate and positive and healthy representation, so I did really appreciate that. I do think that a little bit more could have been done because it's kind of hinted at that Shane almost has like an eating disorder. What is it called? I can't think of what it's called. There's a word for like when you're obsessed with food. Let me find out what it's called. Orthorexia. It was kind of hinted at that Shane had potentially orthorexia because he was just like very focused on eating healthy and to the point of excess. Like he would not eat anything that he did not allow, and like nothing really was like it was never talked about explicitly that he had this problem and magically it's just like solved. So on the one hand, like I think the mental health rep for Ilya was fantastic, but I do think it could have been better for Shane, to be completely honest with you. I think this gives Shane and Ilya a lovely conclusion. Honestly, hope this isn't the last we see of these characters or the last in the series. I would disagree with that. Like I think Shane and Ilya's story is done. I think it's good. It's a closed book. 5 stars. This one is a 4-star. The story is 3.5. I appreciate the author gave us Ilya and Shane fans another book, but I have to admit I found the continuation of their story a bit long-winded and repetitive. There were some pointless scenes that just felt like filler. Ilya was a highlight of the book and Shane was just there. Without Ilya, it would have been boring. I like agree with some parts of that and some parts I don't. I do think that the story was long-winded and repetitive. Like I said, it did not need to be 500 pages. I think a like 350-page book would have been perfect. It was too long, and I do agree that it was a little bit repetitive. I really don't think Shane was boring. Like I want to defend Shane here because he did kind of take a backseat in this book, but I don't know, like I love Shane. Shane is like kind of me, so I love him a lot. And no Shane hate here. Loved the banter, cuteness, intimacy, angst, love, chemistry, and the puppy. Agree with that 100%. Started crying at page 1. Honestly, thought I was gonna cry. Hated Rivalry has made me cry both times I've read it. But this book did not make me cry. I just wasn't like, I don't know, I didn't feel the need to cry at all. I like almost teared up at the scene between Elia and Shane's dad at the very end. That was very touching to me. I just like found family, parent, child relationship type of deals, but yeah, I don't know. Didn't make me cry. I wish it had, but if it had made me cry, I do say I would have given it 5 stars, but since it did not. Ooh, a 3-star rating. Interesting. Let me see. One of my biggest issues with The Long Game, like its name, is very long. I do agree. We've talked about that already. This person thinks there's way too many scenes of Shane and Elia reuniting and having sex. I do agree that literally like most of the book is scenes of them like reuniting having sex. There was not too much smut for me though, I will say. I liked the amount of smut, but it was a little bit repetitive. Breaking My Silence. I read it 4 times and each one got me more baffled. Why would you read it 4 times if you gave it a 1-star rating? I don't understand. Alright, so I feel like we've kind of got a good gist. It's basically like what I talked about. Pretty much everyone loves this book because they love Shane and Elia, and that's really like basically what all the reviews say, so pretty accurate to what I was thinking. Alright, and that is The Long Game. So what did we learn in this video? I do think I learned from this particular video of these 2 particular examples that I can trust average Goodreads ratings, because the book that was the lowest rated I did not like at all and I gave 1 star, and the book that was the highest rated I really loved and gave 4 stars. It would have been cool if The Long Game had been actually 5 stars for me, because then it would have been such a dramatic like contradiction, but you know, that's okay. This was a fun time. It was cool to see how my ratings and feelings compared to the ratings and feelings of the general population. I do say they were quite well aligned. But I feel like if I did this experiment again, it would not go this well. Like, it would be interesting to do it again and see if like I had the opposite opinion of like highest rated and lowest rated books, because I know that there are some low rated books on Goodreads that I absolutely love, and there are some high rated books on Goodreads that I don't like at all. I think that this was just kind of a coincidence that it worked out this way. Still an interesting experiment. In the comments down below, let me know if you would like me to do this again. I did do a video similar to this like a long time ago, almost at the start of my channel, where I read like 5 of the lowest rated books on my Goodreads TBR. So if you're interested in like this kind of content, you can check that video out. Otherwise, I am doing my best to post 2 videos a week. So if you are interested in more content from me, definitely subscribe and hit the bell notification so that you know whenever I post a new video, and also like this video to let me know you liked it. I'm always willing to chat in the comments. So if you have any thoughts, feelings, questions, suggestions, leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. You can also follow me on social media, linked down below. If you'd like to read either of these books for yourself, I do have them linked on my Amazon storefront down in the description. And that is everything, I think, from me today. So thank you again for being here and for watching this video. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.